All right, hello everybody. We're going to start doing a Unity video game tutorial, doing a 2D scrolling platformer game. And I'm going to put a link on the YouTube channel to this particular PDF document that we're going to be following. It's based on Unity Programming Introduction Scrolling Platformer. And we're going to work through this, but I wanted to have a video version of us going through it, showing you how to go through and follow this project and sort of see the ins and outs of working with making this happen. So this is what the basis is on, and I want to just give you a couple things that you're going to need to get started. In this first tutorial, we're going to just create our project and just set up the work environment. We're going to set it up using Unity, but we're also going to use Git version control, and I'm going to use Bitbucket, but you could do this through either GitHub or Bitbucket. And so you're going to need Git installed on your computer. So if you just Googled Git and you don't have it at this point, you just go to, you can Google it and go to this link right here, which is git-scm.com. You can go there, you can download it. You're going to need that on your computer. You're going to need that installed. You're going to want to get an account on either one of the following, either on bitbucket.org or github.com. Now, the pros and cons. github.com is more widely used. You'll see it a lot. And you can have unlimited repositories. The only catch is that they have to be public, so anyone could search and find it if they had the right information. Bitbucket allows you to do private repositories where you would have to actually invite people to be able to access your code and work on it. I'm going to be doing it using Bitbucket because I'm not going to share my code with my students. All right, that being said, I'll walk you through it. Now, the reason why we're going to do this on GitHub or Bitbucket is so that we can have a backup of what we're doing. And you might think, well, can I just do like Google Doc or something like that? Or I mean Google Drive. Well, let me show you kind of the files that create a Unity project. So I have a folder here, and I've got this Unity tutorials. So I have this 2D scrolling platformer, and look at all the folders and files that go into a project. This is not something you can easily just back up on, say, like Google Drive or whatever. It's much better to use Git. And I'm going to walk you through creating all of this, okay? But I just wanted to show you one of the reasons why it's good to use a project management system like Git using either Bitbucket or GitHub. Now, the role of Git, which I showed you earlier, the role of Git is to be able to sort of preserve the history of your project. And then the role of Bitbucket or GitHub is to be an online backup of your project history as well as the project files. Okay, so I would, if you're watching the video, just pause it, make sure you have Git downloaded onto your system, and then go to Unity and go ahead and get the free version. Just click on Get Unity, get it all set up, download it, just do the personal version of Unity, get that all figured out, and then come back. Okay, so once you have everything installed, you're going to want to create a folder and a project where you are going to store your files. Now, I put in documents. I have game design tutorials. I have one on Unity tutorials. So I'm going to create one. I'm doing this in 2 different classes, so I'm going to just go ahead and start from the beginning with Unity. And I'm going to create a folder in this Unity tutorials folder. So I'm going to go ahead and get Unity open. I already have it downloaded, so I open up Unity. And then I'm going to create a new project. So notice I'm not even logged into my account, I don't believe. I'm going to click on New. And then I have to choose the name of the project and where I'm going to store it. So the first thing I want to do is put it in this particular folder right here. And I'll call this scrolling platformer. I'm putting P8 because it's period 8. One of the things that this is going to be a 2D game. So for template, I'm going to choose 2D. And for now, I'm just going to leave it like it is and then click Create Project. Okay. So find a folder. It needs to be in a location. What's going to happen is when I create this project name, it'll create a folder for it. So let me show you. I'm just going to click Create Project, let it run this thing, and you should see this window. It should pop up any moment. So we'll let it do that job. And there it is, scrolling platformer P8 or period 8. Looks like it's still getting stuff set up. So you let that get all set up, and then it'll open it in Unity, and you'll see what your project looks like upon first setup here. And once you get that set up, be presented with a window kind of like this. We're going to do some configuration of the screen in just a moment, but I wanted just to show you that, starting Unity, you get a window like this, and we'll walk through as we go. We're going to do this on a need-to-know basis. So when we need to know information, that's when I'll cover it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take this scrolling platformer P8, and we're going to put this under version control using Git. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is open up the folder in here, and you want to make sure that you've configured your view window here so that you can see hidden items and that you can also see file name extensions. You want both of those checked. It's under folder view options. In Windows 10, it just has it right there, view, it's a tab. If you have an older version, you're gonna have to look for options, and that's where you can add it there on the older version of Windows. Okay, so a couple things we're gonna do. Step one, we're gonna turn this into what's called a Git repository. And that just means this is going to be a folder that's gonna track all the history of what we do. So in order to do that, if you're working on a Windows, you should see Git bash here. If you are on a Mac, you would have to open this particular folder in Terminal. Now, this video can't cover how to do that. But once you're in Terminal, you can do all the Git commands that I'm about to show you on Git bash. So you right-click, choose Git bash here, and the first thing you want to do is make sure you're looking at the right folder. Okay, so I want to be looking at the scrolling platformer P8. I need to see that. If I don't see that, then I'm in the wrong folder. Okay, if you're in the right folder, you're just going to type git init, like so. Git is the technology. Init is the command, which means initialize. It's just shorthand for initialize. And you hit enter, and it'll say initialize empty Git repository in, and the first thing you're going to see is in parentheses master. This is called the master branch. Okay, and this is going to be sort of like the master branch is typically in software, whatever is the current project in its usable state. So if you are working on a software and you're at version 1.3.5, master should have the stuff that works currently. If you're working on some new project, you might have a different branch for that. Let's say you're working on version 2.0. While you're working on it, you might have it on a separate branch, and that's usually what software developers do. But you want to see that it says master there. Now we're going to do something. I'm going to model this practice. If you skip this step, you'll still be okay. But I'm going to create with, well, first of all, actually, before I do anything else, I'm going to do a little command called status. I'm going to type git status. I want to see where are we with our Git project. This is a very common command. I do a lot. And I see a bunch of folders: assets, library, packages, project settings, scrolling platformer, p8.sln, and temp. Now here's the thing. When you're making a video game in Unity, there are some folders that we don't need to pay attention to. We do not need to pay attention to the temp folder. We don't even need to track this SLN file. And I'm pretty sure we don't need, I don't remember which one it is. I think it's project settings. I don't think we need either. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a thing that will allow us to ignore certain files and certain folders that we don't need to track. And this is for our benefit. Sometimes if you were to track it and work on a different computer, it actually would break and not work. And other times, it's just files that get generated automatically when you work with Unity, and you can skip that too. There's really no reason to track something that's automatically generated when you run it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a thing called Git Ignore. And so what I'd like you to do is, the best way to do this is just to open up a tab and just type Unity Git Ignore, all one word. Unity space Git Ignore, all one word. And you should see this GitHub, Git Ignore, Unity, dot blah, blah, blah. So and then there's another one, Git Ignore for Unity projects. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, and it's going to send me to some code. But what I want to do is copy this code and put it into a file called Git Ignore. And you'll see this. It says Git Ignore and unity.gitignore. So once you're here, the best way to copy this is to click raw. And then that opens this up in a way we can just copy and paste. So you're going to copy this, and we're going to put it into a new file, and we're going to call that file .gitignore. So I'm going to Control-C to copy. And then I'm going to go to the folder. By the way, if you notice in this new folder, there's now this hidden file. It's actually a folder .git. And that's kind of hidden. This actually stores the history of your project. You don't want to delete that folder, and you actually want to stay out of it and leave that alone. Okay, we'll let Git do everything else. Everything Git wants to do, we'll store it in that folder. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file. We're going to put it right in where you see these folder names. So we would call this the root Git, or the root repository, or the root project folder. So you're going to right click, and I'm just going to do it by clicking new and clicking text document. Okay, so I right click on the white space. I'm going to do new text document. Now I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm just going to open it up. I find it's easier to open it up, make my edits. So we should have copied all that code, so I'm just going to paste it all in. And we can talk about what this is, but basically these are all the different files and project types that we can ignore. So you see this .vs/. If you have a .vs folder, it ignores it. And then we have certain other file names that end with a dot. We ignore those. We're going to scroll up to the top. We also have, these are all folders. And just for now, you can just ignore what it's doing there. But what we're going to do is we're going to save this as a new file. So you have to go File, Save As. So do that right now. And then you have to change the save as type to all files. Otherwise, it's going to add a .txt at the end, and it will not do what we want it to. Then you're going to put a period or a dot and write out Git Ignore. So it's .gitignore, just like that. And then you're going to click Save. So make sure it's Save as type, all files, file name .gitignore, click Save. You should now see that .gitignore there. Now, an interesting thing, I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to delete this file. I don't need this new text document anymore. It did what I needed it to. So I delete it. Right now it says .gitignore, and so I have this gitignore file, and it has all these things we're supposed to ignore. And as you may recall, the last time I did a Git Status, it showed me all of these files right here in red. We're going to do it again now that we have Git Ignore, and watch what happens. Git Status. Notice there are fewer folders now. Now it's just the Git Ignore, assets, packages, project settings, nothing else. Okay. The Git Ignore allows us to ignore all other things. These are the only things that we need to pay attention to now. So once you've done that, we're going to do our first commit, and then we're going to push the changes through to the online repository. So now I'm going to add these files. I need to tell Git what files I want to commit. So we do a two-step process. First thing is we add what we want to add, and we're going to add everything. To add everything, you just type git, G-I-T, we add a space, we do the word add, and then we do a space, and we hit the period, also known as dot. And that means add everything. So I hit enter, and you suddenly see a lot of these warnings. They're not errors, they're warnings. We could just ignore those. So now we're going to do a git commit. So what a commit does is Git Commit allows us to now take a snapshot of the history of our project, where we are at this moment in time. And you type git space commit, 2 M's, 1 T, space -m space, and I'm just going to put adding initial project files, like so. I'm going to hit enter. And we have this create mode, blah, blah, blah. A bunch of these things were created, and we're going to type git status. And it should say on branch master, nothing to commit, working tree clean. What that means is we successfully preserved the state of our project where it is right now, which is basically we created it. That's all we've done. We're 15 minutes in. Okay, and at this point, we now have our project ready to track on version control. We've already made a commit. It's been stored in this little folder here. You can look at stuff in there, just don't mess with it, or you may have to start all over again. Okay, but at this point, we still only have it on one computer. We have it on, in my case, my laptop. It's nowhere else. So what I need to do is get this project onto an online repository. For that, I'm going to go to Bitbucket. I'm going to go to Bitbucket, and I'm going to create a new repository. Click Create Repository. If you're in GitHub, just go to GitHub. Go to your account. At the very top, you'll see a plus sign. Click it, choose New Repository. You'll notice they're pretty much the same. We have a repository name, a description, the option to initialize a repository with a README. Do not do that, because this won't work quite right if you do it this way. And then the button to create it. The only difference is on Bitbucket, you have two different systems, Git or Mercurial. We're not doing Mercurial, we're doing Git. So you're going to come up with a name, 2D scrolling shooter. I'm going to put P8 for period 8, so I know that's what it is. Because it's Bitbucket, I check this is a private repository, and I make sure that we do not have a README. Make sure that says no. Because what you want to do is you basically want to create it with none of the files online yet. And you click Create Repository, and you should see just a series of some commands. Get started quickly. Okay. Get your local Git repository on Bitbucket. That's what we're going to do right now. Okay. It says switch to your repositories directory. We're already in it right there. This is the directory it's talking about. Let me just hide that. Okay. So we go back to Bitbucket. Let's hide that again. And now what we need to do is we need to just copy this line of code right here, whatever they give you. Don't copy mine, it won't work, right? You need to do it for your own repository that you just created. Okay, so you're just gonna copy that, Control C. You're gonna go over here. And now there is no Control V, so you have to right click and choose paste. Shift Insert does it on Windows, hit enter. Actually, Command V works on a Mac, doesn't work on a Windows, sorry. And what this did is now this folder is now connected to the online repository. Okay, origin is a keyword for that online site. Master is my current branch. So now you're going to do a git push -u origin master, just like that. Hit enter. And in my case, it's going to ask for a passphrase. And when I hit enter, if I did my passphrase right, and I didn't, I know I'm going to get it wrong. I have to do it all over again. Oh, I get to do it again. There we go. If it says counting, delta, compression, writing, etc., branch master set up to track remote branch master from origin, then you're good. And so if you go over back here and you hit refresh, if you did that right, you'll see your project right there. Assets, packages, project settings, Git Ignore. If you did that, you're set up and you can now begin to work and you can have a backup of your site. And we'll walk you through in later tutorials, we'll use this, but we're gonna focus really on the game mostly. So at this point, if you did everything right, you can just exit out of this window and congratulate yourself that you've begun version control and Unity video game design. So stay tuned for further videos. Thanks for watching.